Welcome back to Squad Anime. You're here with Q, David, and Akil, and the most important member, you. Today we're going to cover One Piece chapter 1061, titled The Island of the Future, Egghead. And no, that is not a diss to anybody here. Alright, let's get right into it, guys. So, Luffy just grabbed somebody that popped out of the water, and it turned out to be Jewelry Bonnie. He says he saved. Chopper's like, well, he's freaking out because he's over the water, right? And they look down and they see this giant shark. I'm terrified.
It's huge.
Yeah, it's enormous.
Oh yeah, listen, when it cut to the panel of showing the Straw Hat ship underneath like the giant like mouth of this creature, I was terrified as well. It gave me I can't remember what was the name of that movie,
Jaws.
Where they had like the megalodon. Yeah, no, not Jaws, like the one that they made more recently was like a megalodon, massive giant. Like,
I think Megalodon was the name of the movie.
Yeah, I think that is.
Yeah, well, yeah, it made me think of that because this thing is massive. We know that the Straw Hat ship, it's big. It's not the biggest ship we've seen in One Piece, but it's without a doubt definitely a big ship. And the fact that it's like, it looks like it's about like similar to the size of the teeth of this monster.
Yeah.
So, absolutely, the Straw Hats are in real danger right now. Luffy and Chopper are over water and they're devil fruit users. The rest of the crew is about to be swallowed by this shark, and they just narrowly manage to miss it as it like comes up and kind of chomps down.
Yeah.
Then Zoro, he mentions that it's made of metal, so that's like okay. And we also see just a sliver of a name written on the side of the shark too. Give a little bit of foreshadowing. And so they're here holding on tight. The ship is kind of flying up in the air, and they're about to crash down. Jinbei's telling everyone to hold on. Frankie take over the helm. As this happens, the ship crashes down, and now we have Frankie activates the propeller to propel the ship out of the way of the shark so they can get to safety.
But he doesn't know that this dude's armed with missiles.
Yeah.
This dude has missiles coming out of his mouth, and so the Straw Hats they're basically like fighting a giant submarine with teeth right now.
Exactly.
So things aren't looking good.
I would say things definitely aren't looking good, as when the missiles hit, they managed to capsize the ship, sending everyone on board out into the water and like leaving the ship floating completely upside down.
And of course, our devil fruit users get thrown into the water, of course. So we have Chopper, Luffy, and Bonnie all thrown into the water, which is terrible because this is their biggest weakness, being devil fruit users, and they can't swim. So now we have to go and save them. So Jinbei goes to the rescue.
So after Jinbei manages to save them, he like even comments that the noise that they heard sounded like an explosion, and he heads up to see like the massive current that I guess the explosion from the shark's missile caused. And then he turns just in time to see the shark targeting him with a missile as well. And he's shocked too. He's like, a cannon? Like, he's like, I thought this was just a shark. He's like, hold your breath, everyone. We're gonna have to go back under once again. And we see the 3 devil fruit users already wiped out from being underwater once, just like use the last their strength to take one big gulp of air before they dive back under to not dodge this missile that explodes on the surface right above them.
I'm so happy they added Jinbei to the crew because he's the perfect person to have in this situation, yes. Right? But much to our surprise, a giant mech comes out of nowhere, and this isn't Frankie. Keep that in mind. Yeah. A giant mech comes out of nowhere, gives the shark a left hook for the ages. So the shark's pretty much like destroyed at this point, and then you see Zoro carrying Brook by the afro to swim up. Sanji's got Robin. Usopp is
drowning.
Usopp is incapacitated. And then we cut to a nearby island.
Yes, G14 naval base at a nearby island. So now we see the Navy HQ captain, Tashigi, talking to the giant kids that we saw earlier in the One Piece series. We also see a new commander, a vice admiral called Dahl. And so Dahl is talking and asking where Helmeppo is and why is he acting so weird and stuff. And they're like, oh, of course it'd be weird because, Kobe was like his friend and Kobe's like missing, so they're trying to do whatever they can. So now we to a scene where we see Helmeppo and Hibari pleading to a new character that we have not seen before called Prince. It says that he's a Navy HQ rear admiral, talking to him saying, hey, we want you to use your powers to look for Kobe. He's saying, hold on, this is a suicide mission. You want to go there where this is like known, like Blackbeard's territory? And he's like, I don't want to get my ass kicked. Like he's a Yonko.
Yeah, but Helmeppo, he's still pleading. He's like, Egghead's so close to us, why can't we deploy a Seraphim? And, we've seen already the power that these Seraphim are packing. And Gruss is like, are you crazy? You guys need to calm down. He's like, we can't get a hold of Drake right now. We're in no position to take any kind of action. And so he's like, that's final. And then before we can even see more of what's going on with the Marines, it kind of cuts back to Luffy's group. And Jewelry Bonnie is surprised that Luffy doesn't even know who she is. She's like, I'm part of the worst generation just like you. We were both on Sabaody 2 years ago. And Luffy's like, oh, you're part of the worst generation? That's cool. And she's like, listen, don't forget we're enemies, and the name's Bonnie. And then she kind of thanks him for saving her life. And then he, in classic Luffy fashion, is like, don't sweat it, Bogey.
Yeah, Luffy always messes up people's names. I think it's hilarious when he does that. Unless they're an actual threat. Like, he never messed up Katakuri's name once. Mm-hmm. So I just find that funny. And then she's like, are you really an emperor? Because, he doesn't give off that presence just yet. But yeah. I think it's coming. And then she says, hey, what's the deal with your wanted poster anyway? I thought your hair was white now. They made quite a stir about it in the papers, she thought he was on that boy band phase where he was just dyeing his hair white, trying to pull off the Eminem look. But obviously, we know that it's his Gear 5th form, and that's just how he feels when he's totally free. Bonnie says, what's that supposed to mean? And then she's like, aren't you worried about the rest of your crew? And Luffy has full confidence. He's like, they'll figure it out. And she can't believe that Jinbei joined his crew as well. Since we're on that subject, what happened to your ship and your crew? She said, that metal monster back there gobbled up my ship. And that reminds me, I'm starving. The glutton, Jewelry Bonnie. Keep that in mind. I would think her hunger can compete with Luffy's.
Luffy's like, oh, let's go find a restaurant because he's hungry too. And then she's like, you boys don't have a clue? She's like, you think there's any food here? She's like, this is a government island. How do I spell it out for you? We are on Egghead, which to us, we don't know what that means yet. But she says the island is said to be 500 years in the future. And this is where Dr. Vegapunk's research lab is here. So this is a huge reveal for us, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, Vegapunk, I know that name, because, obviously they've been hearing about Vegapunk throughout the series. Bonnie says, well, I got business here with Vegapunk. So then we go back to the giant mecha robot that now we see is like even bigger than the, Luffy's pirate ship. So this is, it's almost as big as a shark, maybe a little bit smaller. And they're just like kind of, fanboying over the giant robot. Of course, Frankie, Usopp. Too bad Chopper's not here. He's going to miss out. Yeah. But...
yeah, and so while they're fanboying over this giant robot, we kind of hear that, and it says that there's a translator note that it's an old-timer speech, which I think is kind of funny. It's like, God, this won't do it all. It's another failure. I wonder why, though. And they're like, perhaps overriding primal desires is simply impossible. And Sanji, exclaims that somebody's coming out, and we see, this person start to come out the mech. And they're like, how utterly vexing. And Frankie's like, well, thanks for saving us, but who are you? And then the person's like, I ordered the mecha shark to scout, report, and fire, but it keeps trying to eat ships. And there won't be anything left to salvage. And she's like, I must have bungled the programming. They're like, forgive me, but did you just say I saved you? It's like, oh, you naive pirates, I work for the government. Despite my mediocrity, they like to call me their scientific genius. You can call me Dr. Vegapunk. And the biggest shock of all is that Dr. Vegapunk, who for the longest time we all thought was an old dude, is a young baddie. My boy Sanji about to lose it, bro.
Yeah, he about to lose it, man.
If he told him to put on that suit, he would do it no questions asked.
Oh, yeah.
He would stick for her so hard. We finished the chapter, and now we're going to get into the discussion section here. And I think we know what's on everybody's minds. Dr. Vegapunk has finally been revealed.
Yes.
After the first name drop, God knows how long ago, we finally get to see the Dr. Vegapunk that's 500 years into the future. This is the Vegapunk that not only converted Kuma to a cyborg, but created Momo's fruit, converted the Seraphims, and there's just so much more that, Dr. Vegapunk has done. Frankie has built his body around Dr. Vegapunk's, science and blueprints. Yeah. So, this character has had such an influence on the One Piece series, it's ridiculous.
This is a huge reveal. I think especially because from the previous cameos of Vegapunk, it's always not even talked about they're older, but also even the cameo pictures, they show an older man, like a figure of an older man. So this is really interesting.
Yeah.
And so I think what's also interesting is that we see that number 2 on the shirt of Vegapunk. So I think that could be some, maybe a hint into like what's happening here as well.
It kind of reminds me of like the Germa suits too, because they had numbers, I think, on their suits as well. What about you, Akil? What do you think?
So I have a couple things. Before I get into what I think in terms of the number 2, because when I saw that, I had a couple ideas. I think the most interesting thing is that Vegapunk, when she shows up, says, despite my mediocrity, the world government likes to call me their scientific genius. As if this person hasn't single-handedly put like 500 years of the future's worth of technology into current day, and then calls herself mediocre. I mean, like, what? Just how high is Vegapunk aiming for, like, the standards that she set so far to her to consider mediocre? Like, that already is just kind of insane to me. But on top of that, I also wonder if maybe it's possible if Vegapunk split their bodies in the sense of, I'm not entirely sure, but like they built other bodies for themselves because they wanted to do more work. And so it's possible that maybe like Dr. Vegapunk has multiple bodies and hence the 2 on the suit. Like the first Vegapunk made another Vegapunk and like transferred his consciousness and then made another Vegapunk transfer his consciousness so he could have like multiple bodies, versions of himself working on projects at a time to kind of speed up anything that he's working on or they're working on.
That's a good idea. I didn't even think about that.
No, I think that's really good, especially because, Vegapunk works in, like biogenetics and like cyborg technology. I don't think it's like crazy to think that Vegapunk could split their consciousness, not only to do more work, but also if they wanted to theoretically like live forever, right?
Yeah, I think that makes sense because you remember how the Germa had their soldiers, they were clones of each other, right?
Yeah.
So it's not far-fetched to think that Vegapunk could do the same thing because I think Sanji's father, Judge Finsmoke, and Vegapunk used to be partners in research. She worked with Judge, she worked with Caesar Clown, and I mean, who else knows who she's worked with, but we all know that Vegapunk is like the top. I wonder if they have a devil fruit as well. I wonder if their intellect is a result of their devil fruit. And I think that it would be even more amazing if they were able to replicate that devil fruit ability, whatever it is, like the smart fruit or whatever, replicate that ability into their clones as well, because that would make a lot of implications for like other devil fruits in the future, right? Like they could be cloned, that would be insane.
Honestly, Vegapunk could manufacture devil fruits, as you see with Smile, for example.
Yeah, but we don't know what made that fruit defective yet.
Yeah,
even though it's seemingly like a clone of Kaido, right?
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to bring up was that the beef that I think Jewelry Bonnie has with Vegapunk is that Vegapunk made Kuma a pacifista. Because way back in episode 888, we see that Jewelry Bonnie is on the holy land of Mariswa, right?
Yeah.
And she's like, I'm gonna save you, Kuma, no matter what. So I think that they have some history, Kuma and Bonnie, and I wonder like what it is. I think it would be crazy. This is like a far off theory, but like I think it would be crazy if Jewelry Bonnie turned out to be Luffy's mom.
Oh, that's wow.
It's funny that you say that because I didn't think Jewelry Bonnie was Luffy's mom, but I was looking and I'm wondering if maybe Jewelry Bonnie and Vegapunk are related somehow. I felt like when I was looking at Vegapunk's face and I went and looked back at Jewelry Bonnie's, it didn't look identical, but they looked similar. And so I'm wondering if maybe there's a potential for them to have been related, whether Vegapunk is Jewelry Bonnie's mom, other way around, whether they're cousins, an aunt and niece, whatever. I'm just thinking it's possible that maybe Jewelry Bonnie's related to Vegapunk. Because I'm not sure what other business she would really have with Vegapunk to come to the island.
Yeah, it also could be, I just saw with the Seraphs, like how Vegapunk took DNA from the other like warlords to like make those. Like I think it is possible that maybe Vegapunk has used Bonnie's or other pirates like DNA for experiments too. So maybe that lookalike could have been using like her DNA. I have one more theory. So they talk about how Egghead Island is supposed to be 500 years into the future. But what if this isn't exactly a correct interpretation? Because we know that some of the most powerful weapons, like Pluton and Neptune, everything was created in the ancient world, and all this
The void
technology.
century,
Yeah, and we have all these chronicles that everyone wants, that has all this information, all this technology that's supposed to be the most powerful in the world. What if Vegapunk is actually using technology 500 years in the past, but it's so much more advanced than what we currently have right now? And that's what's giving this, this is 500 years in the future, but really using ancient technology that's far ahead of our time right now. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. Oh man, that's a good theory. Actually, there is one more thing. When Luffy responds to Bonnie, and when she asked about it, she thought his hair was white, and he said, "That's just how I look when I'm totally free." I know that we have like a lot of theories, but like I do like that, like that's how he interprets it, in the sense of he truly is free from everything in a certain sense. Like he breaks free from the laws of physics, from the laws of causality, like from the like laws that govern the world in a sense. He truly does become totally free. And so I thought it was interesting that like that was his response to like his form.
Yeah, he doesn't even. Does he refer to it as Gear 5th, or was that Oda referring to it as Gear 5th?
I think he referred to it as Gear 5th, because when he first got it, he was like, this is like my new high, like this is Gear 5th.
Okay, then I guess my theory's out the window. If anybody else doesn't have any other theories, I think we'll wrap up the video here. Nice and short, put a bow on it, and we'll see you guys next time. Squad out.
Squad out.
Squad out.